Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to Coffee with Craig, where we talk about all things firearms policy, politics, culture, media, you name it. We're talking about it right here on Coffee with Craig. So please take a moment, like and share the program so that your friends will know exactly what you're up to this morning. Also, if you haven't already done so, please remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Facebook. And remember, hit the notification button so that you'll know exactly when we go live and can join the conversation as it's happening. Also, would like to encourage you, please take a moment, visit fpcgear.com. That's fpcgear.com. It is a cool place to find all sorts of Pro 2A swag, t-shirts, coffee mugs, hoodies, stickers, you name it. The great thing is that every dollar that you spend will go right back into the fight for our right to keep and bear arms. So you can support the Second Amendment and you can look good doing it. That's fpcgear.com. All right, getting into today's topic. It's something that's kind of close to my heart. Many of you know I am a school board member. I've been a school board member for almost 15 years. I'm a former classroom teacher. I have 2 kids who've gone through the education process. So education is something that is very, very important to me. And just like many of you, when I sent my children off to school, I expected for them to be safe. And unfortunately, in this day and age, we can't always expect that. There's been an increase in mass shootings or active shooter situations that are taking place at schools across the country. But there's an interesting study that's come out recently. And what this study points to is the fact that it's not happening everywhere. In fact, what this study shows is that these sorts of shootings are not occurring on campuses or in school districts where teachers are allowed to carry. That's right, where teachers are allowed to carry, this just doesn't seem to be the case. In fact, what it shows is there have been absolutely no active shooter or mass shooter situations at schools where teachers are not just allowed to carry, but encouraged to carry. Now, one of those reasons I happen to believe is because, well, we're not just talking about, as people want to accuse, they want to say, oh, well, we're just, making teachers carry guns. But it's really about teachers who are receiving the sort of training that allows them to be effective in working with and being a part of an active shooter a response program. Matter of fact, here in Sacramento area, we actually had one school district, Rancho Cordova School District, who, while you were allowed to carry on campus, these teachers were actually, and staff members were actually part of a active shooter response team, and was part of the plan. And so we're prepared and trained alongside law enforcement in order to be able to address situations like that. But I wanted to have someone on to talk a little bit about this particular study. And so I want to invite Mr. Joe Eaton. He is the program director for Faster Saves Lives. Mr. Eaton, thank you so much for joining us.
Glad to be here. Happy to help.
Excellent. So, all right, first of all, give me your thoughts on this particular study. Does it tell you something you didn't already know?
Well, yes and no. The problem we've had all along is actually measuring deterrence is very difficult, if not impossible to do. So I always like the way that Dr. Lott does his studies. He releases all of his information so that every detail he has can be gone through with a fine-tooth comb and find out what is true and what is not true. And it's very encouraging to see that his results are showing what we have believed for a long time.
Now, like I said, I happen to believe that one of the reasons why this happens, why you find that this is the case, is because those who do decide to carry on campuses, as we know, people who decide to carry generally tend to be the most law-abiding and conscientious of all citizens, let alone gun owners. And I think training like the training that you guys provide plays no small role in that.
Yeah, we see this. The majority of the staff that we see already have concealed carry licenses if they're available in their states. And, it's really not much of a stretch if they're already carrying a firearm every other hour of the day and across the weekends to keep themselves and their families safe. Why not let them do that the 8-10 hours a day that they're in the schools with our children? And, that becomes a very easy decision for schools to see, because all the problems that may come to mind, they realize are not happening when the staff is out in public all the other days of the week. So they pick the right staff, they get them good training, they have ongoing oversight to keep the qualification levels to where they're comfortable, and that's how they have a safe and effective program.
Well, you know, it's funny, like even here in the state of California, one of the things that I've always said is the state should actually be encouraging people to want to get their concealed carry permits because, once again, these are people who go through training on a regular basis. These are people who go through backgrounds on a regular basis. And the same thing can be said in this case for teachers. We're not just telling teachers, they show up to work and all of them were, okay, here you go. We're going to hand you a gun and now you got to go defend yourself in your classroom. Like you said, it's people who generally almost always already have their concealed carry permit. So they're already going through a certain level of training. But then on top of it, most of these school districts are actually then providing additional training on top of that.
Yeah, that's right. And, a lot of the other media out there is very disingenuous. You will always hear it reported as we are arming teachers. And, that's to give the perception that the school districts are standing at the front door handing Glocks out to the 70-year-old kindergarten teacher or to the brand new college graduate as they walk in the door. And that's simply not the way these programs work. Having somebody carry a firearm in the school is not something that is for everyone. And those staff who choose not to be a part of a program such as the Faster Saves Lives, there's nothing wrong with that. That's a decision each staff has to make. Now, there may be other things those staff choose to do. There's a huge trauma medical portion of the training. There are other things that they can help out with. And, it's got to be an entire overlapping layers of security or how we keep our schools safe.
You just brought up an interesting point, and that is something, in terms of the trauma training. Explain to our viewers a little bit about the non-firearm related training that people who participate in FASTER receive.
Yeah, that's part if you watch the media, it is all focused on the guns. And we know that's where the media gets their clicks and their likes, and that's how they stay in existence. But there's so much more to the Faster Saves Lives program. Number one, it is the absolute last line of defense. Schools, before they get to this level, have already implemented the hardening of the entrances, the single sign out. They have trained staff on how to look for changes in behavior and personality. They've set up tip lines. They're simply looking for what else can we do for when everything else fails. So what our program does, we brought our experts from across the country together to come up with a complete training curriculum for the schools. It does include firearms. It's a 3-day program for the level 1. The firearms part of it, we even have them qualified to a level which exceeds the requirements of each state for their statewide police officers. But beyond that, we get into the general crisis and emergency management type of training. How do I move myself or others from an area of danger to an area of safety? How can I safely move through large chaotic crowds with or without a firearm? And then more importantly, the trauma medical side of it is a very large section of the training, because once you're behind the curve and violence has entered a school, a church, or a business, the way that you save lives is, first, you stop the killing as soon as possible. And then second, you stop the dying as soon as possible by having the tools and training there to start immediately rendering aid while you're waiting on the professionals to get there. And that's what we do. The program started as a 3-day curriculum, and it now has expanded to 3 years and beyond for a lot of school districts.
You brought up an interesting point relating to law enforcement training. Now, here in the state of California, the only law enforcement training, or the only firearms training that the average law enforcement officer is required to get is in the academy, which I believe is either 16 or 24 hours of training. How often, or from your experience in dealing with law enforcement, how much training do they actually get when it comes to these sorts of situations, at least the rank and file average law enforcement officer?
That's a great point. Generally, the staff that have completed training like the Faster Saves Lives are the subject matter experts in their districts and their communities, unless they have certain police officers which have specifically sought out this type of training. I know specifically in Ohio, it is not part of the required training. The police officers can take additional training, but again, they have to get permission from their departments. They have to get approval and pay for this. And the truth is that just doesn't happen in the vast majority of the situations.
And that's the thing that people just don't get. They think that law enforcement shows up and, well, they're the experts, and I'm like, no, they're not. You said that, number one, they have to seek out that training. In many cases, there's not a lot of mandated training for law enforcement, even in situations like this. Although, they do seem to be interested in pushing diversity training and, racial sensitivity training or cultural sensitivity training and all of these other trainings. But when it comes to the issues like this, oftentimes, in particular in school districts that allow this, the teachers are the staff that is there, that is going through this training. They're, like you said, they're the subject matter experts, not law enforcement.
Yeah, and we're actually seeing some good progress in that. When we started the Faster Saves Lives program back in 2012, the truth of the matter is, even if they had a school resource officer in the school, that position was a lot of times where they would delegate people they didn't want to have out on street duty, or where they would put people for their last 6 months of retirement. That was really doing the schools a disservice. Thankfully, over the years, the police departments have realized that these school resource officers serve a really critical function inside of these schools. And we encourage a school, if they have resource officers in the buildings, get them out, train them right alongside the staff, and start building that community relationship so they can have a safe and effective program.
That that is so true. And I think that in many cases, law enforcement is learning just as those in the education community are learning and are getting more a greater degree of understanding in these issues. I take a place like here in California where literally a lot of the training that you're talking about does take place, with the exception of the firearm. And the problem is that, like you said, how do you meet? Sometimes you are going to be put in a position that in order to protect or defend yourself or your students, you're going to have to meet force with force. And if you don't have the ability to be able to have a firearm, then the amount of force that you're going to be able to engage with is going to be limited.
Yeah, and we see this quite a bit. The majority of these mass killing events stop as soon as some type of effective resistance shows up. They're either stopped, or, just as importantly, they change their focus from the innocence to the person that is providing the resistance. And sometimes simply physical or verbal resistance is enough. We saw it at Chardon High School here in Ohio, but other times it's not. And that's where firearms have to be a part of it, because these staff love these kids enough that they're willing to stand between a murderer with a rifle and these kids. We need to give them every opportunity they have to survive and go home to their family at the end of the night. And that's not too much to ask.
You know what? You literally took the words right out of my mouth. That is the case. It's the reason why, when you hear that there's over 2 million instances per year where individuals have utilized their firearms to protect themselves or to protect their family or protect their property, many, 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 many times, they don't even have to fire a shot. These cowards who go and they go to try and inflict this sort of terror on individuals, they're cowards. And so as soon as they are confronted with an individual that has the ability to stop them, a lot of times they stop, they run. In many cases, they commit suicide. They take their own lives. But we're taking that in a place like California. We've removed that as an option.
Yeah, a perfect example is, look at the court documents and papers that were just recently released for the killings at the Townsville Elementary School back, I believe, in 2015. The killer there specifically stated that he wanted to go into the middle school where he was suspended from, or wanted to go into the middle school, but he knew that they had armed security in the middle school, so he went to the elementary school instead. And, that is what we see time and time again. All of these killers are looking for the same thing. They want to beat the last numbers. They want to get that infamous, the media feeds them. And that's why I'm so glad that we're starting to see programs like our Stop Making Killers Famous push to stop naming the killers in here and focus on the victims and the heroes in all of these crimes. That's how we make a difference.
Exactly. So, how do folks learn more about Faster Saves Lives? Or first, before we even do, tell us a little bit about just kind of the program in general, the different places where you have people coming in from that are doing the training, and then let us know, how can people find out more about your program if they want to participate?
Certainly. We have so far trained in just over 6 years, 7 years now, over 2,600 school staff from 260 different school districts, and that's people from 18 different states. The majority of our classes are held here in Ohio. There we go. Lights timed out. Are held here in Ohio, but we started in 2017 doing classes in Colorado. 2018, we started doing classes in Indiana. This year we have one scheduled in Utah, and we'll probably be in Pennsylvania also. But staff anywhere in the country are welcome to come here to Ohio to take the training. We have 2 locations that we offer the training here in Ohio. If it's the school's first year in the program, we generally, our foundation can provide grants for them if they can handle the travel and the food while they're out here. We will provide grants for the training for it, and they can see what's available on the schedule at fastersaveslives.org.
Excellent. Joe, thank you. Thank you for all the work that you do. Thank you for, making sure that, making sure the kids are safe.
It is one of the most rewarding things I've done outside of raising my own kids, is working with this staff that truly love our kids and our grandkids. It is really a special program.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And once again, keep up the good work. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Joe Eaton from Faster Saves Lives. You take care. All right, folks. Well, hey, that's going to be it for today's Coffee with Craig. We very much appreciate you guys tuning in. We appreciate you liking and sharing the program and telling your friends about the Firearms Policy Coalition. Because as we like to say, we are the home in the fight for civil rights. Got to use them or you're going to lose them. You guys take care.
If you like our videos, follow, subscribe, like, and share.